Stephanie Rocha is the founder of Beyond Trafficking, which provides a secure and trustworthy refuge for survivors of human trafficking, where they empower and protect survivors from breaking the cycle of bondage.
So at this point, we are working to build what we call the Amada house. Amada in Spanish means beloved, and we are all God's beloved children. And so we are working to build this home that will be a refuge for survivors of human trafficking, women, children, men. And so at this point, we work as an advocate for survivors, as well as assisting them to get necessary resources, whether it's counseling, medical, dental, all of that. But when they are finally ready to leave what we call the game, we assist and provide and setting them up in safe housing. And so, unfortunately, here in the United States, well, unfortunately, in the world, there's just not enough beds for human trafficking survivors. There's just not. And especially age, gender, that's a whole thing. Men, there's hardly anything available for men. And that really is a problem. And so I knew then that we had to do something.
That breaks my heart to hear that men don't have us, they don't have that kind of support. And so anybody out there hearing this, step it up, because we really need to, to help these men, because they suffer too. The women are really suffering a lot, and the children, because we see them sex trafficking over the border. And you must see a lot of that coming over and experiencing that. So what's the deal with that?
Yeah, I will definitely say, I'm not sure when they did the last study, but Texas was number 2 in the nation. California was first, and we were second. However, I know that that's changed. I'm pretty positive Texas is number 1 in the nation due to the border situation. I've actually done some training there at the border. I've actually got to see some things happen in person. I've been out, at 2 or 3 in the morning on the border to see what this looks like, and it is horrible. It is definitely a crisis, and we have to do something. And I just know, I mean, from experience, working in the nations, I'll give you an example. I have a family in Ecuador who the mother and the father left their children in Ecuador to come to the States whenever the borders were open in order for better job opportunities, to make some money. And now they owe their smugglers $30,000. So now it has become trafficking. There's a difference between smuggling and trafficking, but now it has become trafficking because they are being forced to work, and all of the money is going to what we call their coyotes that cross the border, that help them cross the border. So who knows if they will ever be able to go back home to their family. They came over here with thoughts of having a better future, more opportunities, and that's not the case. And they're not getting to send home money like they expected. They're not being able to provide for their family. So meanwhile, these 2 children there in Ecuador are sitting there without parents because the parents chose to come over here to try to assist the family, and it just doesn't work like that.
Oh man.
So it is definitely a crisis, and we are West Texas. So unfortunately, not just the sex trafficking is a thing, but the labor trafficking is a huge thing here.
Wow, that breaks my heart. That's and we see people dropping their kids over the border, right? And like 2-year-olds, 1-year-olds, who do they expect are going to take care of these children? And we know that the sex traffickers, right? I mean, you should know, right? That sex traffickers, they're just standing there waiting for this to
Yes.
happen.
Exactly. And it was a year ago that I went last to the border. That was right in the middle of when everything was going on. But I learned something that was very just eye-opening to me. There was a loophole, and I'm not sure that this is still the case, but a year ago, this was the loophole. If you are an undocumented immigrant, you can take custody of another undocumented immigrant.
Oh no.
So these traffickers would come across the border, and they would take custody of these children, say that, oh, I'm their uncle, I'm their aunt, I'm this or that. And then these children are just gone. You know, walking around the border and finding children's underwear on the floor
That's horrible.
tore me up. Yes. And so, like I said, it is definitely a crisis. We have to do something. I love that you just put out a call to action. because as believers, it is our job to come together to help people for the kingdom. And so I love that you just did that, because it takes all of us to do this.
Hmm. And there are many people out there, they want to serve the Lord. They don't know how. This is such an amazing way. And at the end, you're going to have where you're going to talk to people and tell them exactly how they can get started and do something about this. Now, I'm asking you, what are some of the signs that parents, in the United States right now, or anyone else can look for if their child or daughter or son is being sex trafficked? What are those signs?
Well, that's what I feel like I said. Education is always key. So we work to try to be educate our community in our schools, in our Boys and Girls Club, all of those things. That is most important. There's some amazing tools for parents out there that teach internet safety. Because unfortunately, Nancy, our new playground is this.
Mm.
This is the new playground, the phone. It is literally in their hands at all times. And unfortunately, during COVID, we saw the increase of numbers of human trafficking rise. I believe it's like 130% or something along those lines. It was pretty high, over 100%, because there was nowhere for them to go, nothing for them to do. And so this is how predators and traffickers now are accessing our children, is our phones.
Hmm.
So I would definitely say the most basic thing you could do is make sure that you have apps on your children's phone. Watchdog, Bark, some of these things like that can help put limits on your children's phones where they can't access certain websites. Also, just being present in their lives, being if and I have 5 boys, Nancy, so I'm not going to pretend that as a parent we're always the safest place to go. I know my children are not going to tell me things that they would tell their best friends, but I
Hmm.
did make sure that they had, whether it's a youth pastor, whether it was a coach, that they had trusted people that they could talk to, because if they won't go to mom and dad, they need to go to somebody. So
Hmm.
making sure that they have somebody that they can talk to, but making sure that they just have limits on their phones. I highly recommend this. I have a 13-year-old still myself. And at night, we have a basket, and all of our phones go into the basket at night. There's no reason for our children to be on the phone at 2, 3 in the morning. Um, who knows what's going on? So just being cautious, just using tools like, I mean, there's great tools out there right now to help monitor our children's phone. And actually, like Shared Hope International is one of the largest anti-human trafficking organizations, in particular children, in the world, and they have some really cool tools. We actually share those a lot, but internet safety guidelines, that kind of thing. And even Google has this really cool internet safety handout, and they use some acronyms, which I love acronyms because they help you remember things. But it's the SMART, alert, strong, kind, and brave. And SMART stands for share with care. Alert means don't fall for fake. Strong means secure your secrets. Kind is it's cool to be kind, and brave is when in doubt, talk it out. Out of all of those, Nancy, I would say the biggest thing is to be able to have communication. When in doubt, talk it out. If your children don't know, I remember my son was on YouTube, and there was something that popped up, and it was just an ad. But we know there was something going on. But he had the ability to come to his father and talk about it. So having somebody that these children can talk to about it. And also, like, even as a parent, as a mom, like my heart kind of drops, and I'm like, so I have to really control my facial expressions. I have to make sure that I am not making a big deal out of it, otherwise they'll never come to me again. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
As a
So
parent, you have
exactly.
to tread the waters. I get it.
Exactly.
I get it. So, can you share a story about maybe one of the women that you've had to minister to, that would be impactful for somebody who might be listening and wanting to get involved, and understand that this is such a crucial thing in our life to be addressed?
Yeah, so I'm going to share a story of a she was 18. At the time, she was 16. And, and I'll be honest with you, I remember being 16, and my mother did not get me in my book, and I was invincible, and I was also looking for love in the wrong places. And I think part of my passion comes from my own pain. This could have been me. This absolutely could have been me. And so she was struggling with her family at home and her parents. Her father was a pastor, to be honest with you. She just didn't feel like she fit in. Her mother and her were always at odds. And so she started looking for love in the wrong places. And she met a gentleman on the internet. And at the time, I believe it was MySpace, is what it was that she met. And this gentleman was older than her, maybe 4 or 5 years. So he would be what we call a Romeo pimp, where he comes in and kind of acts like a boyfriend and that kind of thing. And so that she just kind of started falling for him. They would do fun things and go to the movies. Of course, all along she's sneaking out doing these things behind her parents' back. And this is what I would say a middle class slash high class family. So this is not, just your what you typically think happens with human trafficking, but this is something that everyday families happens to. So anyhow, this guy starts courting her, and he starts wooing her in. And before we know it, she was about to turn, I believe, 16 or 17. And he said, "Oh, I want to throw you a birthday party. Let's go do something fun." And so she's telling mother she's going to go stay the night with some friends. Well, that wasn't the case. I think that she'd spend with about 3 months kind of dating him in her book. And so that weekend, she was supposed to be staying the night at a friend's house. He took her across state lines. And so she went from New Orleans to Mississippi, and I think to Florida as well. And in that time, that first night, she was raped, she was drugged, and she was being pimped out at cheap hotels along the way to Florida.
Oh,
And so the only reason that she was rescued is after several days they didn't have any clothes, and they went to a laundromat. And while they were at the laundromat, she was pretty beat up and abused, and he was sitting right there. And apparently he went to the restroom, and another lady at the laundromat turned out to be an ER nurse. Noticed.
wow.
And she said, "Honey, are you okay?" And of course, the young girl was like, "No." And so the ER nurse knew what to do. And that's another thing. We need to know what to do when we see something.
Mm-hmm.
We say all the time, see something, say something, but do
Yes.
we actually know what to do? And
Yes.
so this lady did. And so because of her education and because of the things she saw, she knew what to do. So the guy came out and he was kind of curious. He noticed that she was looking at the young girl. And so they left immediately. Matter of fact, they left the clothes there in the washer dryer, and they left immediately. And the nurse followed them, and she followed them to the hotel. She called the police, and the police kicked down the door, and they found her. She had been raped by so many men. She was unclear. She had been forced to do drugs. They were shooting her up between her toes.
Oh,
And this nightmare lasted, I believe, 7 days. And so, can you imagine what her life looks like now? And praise the Lord for freedom. And that's another thing here at Beyond Trafficking. Uh, at this point, we're not receiving any, many grants or anything like that. And I think a lot of it, with us being a faith-based organization, because the way I believe is you will never have true freedom without Jesus Christ. So our
yes.
curriculums and the tools that we use are all Christ centered. So praise the Lord, this girl was able to find the right help. She is now a mom. She now is in school working on her criminology degree
Good
because
girl. Good
yes,
for her.
and so praise the Lord, because of his freedom, she's going to be able to fight for the ones that weren't there to fight for her.
Yes.
So, anyways,
Wow.
it happens all the time now. Now, this particular story, as I told you, this girl was taken and so forth. And that's, I think, what a lot of people think happens when it comes to human trafficking. Like the movie Taken, they're taken and then they're gone. That's not always the case. And so that's another part of the education that we work on. You were asking about some of the red flags, and I just know that some of the red flags from the parents that I've talked to in working with some of the situations that I've worked in, things were happening. Like, for example, I had one girl, she was really into sports. She was a straight A student, and all of a sudden, her grades were declining. All of a sudden, she stayed in her room all the time. She quit caring about sports. All the things that she loved were no longer a factor anymore. And so those are things we need as parents, we need to realize, hey, something's going on. We need to get to the bottom of it. And we need to do this in a loving way. Just like Christ doesn't rebuke us whenever we make faults and mistakes, but he comes to us lovingly, and he may bring conviction, but he will never condemn. So, hey, you're better than this. So, as parents, we need to notice those things. If you notice that your child has more than one phone, something's going on. Or if you notice that your child is coming home with, I had one mother that she was telling me her little boy was coming home with brand new shoes, Air Jordans, and all of these expensive shoes, and she couldn't understand where he was getting the money. If your daughters are coming home with brand new Gucci purses, Michael Kors purses, something is going on. So that's when we need to start doing our job and investigate those things.
Mm-hmm.
So those would definitely be some red flags.
That's great. Good information. And so those are wonderful steps to prevent, things from happening. And especially, as parents, we should always be knowing, like you said, what they're doing at all times. Really know who their friends are. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
So I mentioned earlier, we say all the time, if you see something, say something. But what do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the human trafficking hotline has a 1-800 number. And there's also a number you can text. So, I mean, this is how we feel. We would rather you be wrong than to have been right and missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Missed it. I
Mm-hmm.
have a nurse that worked at the ER doctor, and she said, after talking and being sitting in one of my presentations, she said, I know that's what that was. And she said, I can't forgive myself for not saying something. So we would rather you be wrong than have missed it. So know the number to the human trafficking hotline. Know the text message number. Also, there's a few apps that you can download that you can use in order to report some things. One of the number one is called the Stop app. So those are things you can download, and it'll ask you, okay, what did you see? Can you take pictures? Did you see this? Did you get a license plate? What did you see? And it also shares some red flags as well. So you can check that out as well. You can go to our website and see we have a list of red flags mentioned as well. But we feel like the more education, the better. So 10 things, for example, I want to share about something that's happening coming up globally. On October 15th, we have what we call the Walk for Freedom, and that is done across the whole world on the same date. And we walk for those who can't speak for themselves. So that be involved in events like that. Get as much education as you can. Hear the stories. For example, at our walk that we do here in Abilene, we have survivors telling their stories. I have a mother that's going to talk about losing her 18-year-old daughter to trafficking this year. She is passed away now. She was gone in a matter of days because of the drugs that they forced her to do. So get involved. That's the people say, what can we do? Get involved. Volunteer. Our organization runs completely on volunteers at this point. Get involved. We need
So,
your help.
so let me ask you a question. So anybody from around the United States can contact you through your website, beyondtrafficking.com, and then you can provide them with information on how to be involved.
Absolutely, yes. And there's always ways to even be involved remotely. I mean, I have a girl that does not live here. She lives in another country, and she assists with the marketing stuff because that's not my forte. So there's ways you can help these nonprofits or other agencies that are working to try to stop human trafficking. There's so many ways.
Yeah.
So God gave us all gifts and talents. Are we using them? Are we using them to help his people? So yes, absolutely. Give me a call, and I would love to plug you in and find a place for you wherever you live, or whether it's remotely.
Yes. And so you can find out more about this vital organization and some of the resources they provide again on their website, beyondtrafficking.com. Would you like to leave the audience with anything today?
You know, I want you guys to all remember we are not here on this earth for ourselves. And so that's why when we are doing and serving, when we are being the hands and feet, just like Jesus came to serve, not to be served. We feel happy, we feel fulfilled. So, just remember that we are here on this earth to love others, to pour into others, and to be the light for others.
Thank you for watching the call. We hope you learn more about human trafficking and that God puts it on your heart to want to help in this fight for innocent victims. The human trafficking hotline is 1-888-373-7888. If you see something, say something. Until next time, God speaks to you every day. Are you listening to the call?